Welcome everyone back to Weekly Weather Updates, and this evening we'll have a look at the latest from the GFS, the GEM, the ECWF, and we'll have a look at the UK Met Office pressure charts and its temperature and precipitation, and we'll finish up with the GFS ensembles as well. So do remember, if you enjoyed my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So for the last few days, we have a look at the potential for some cold weather for the last half or last third of November. We've seen increasing in the potential over the last few days, but today we've seen a little bit of a backtrack. The operational models have veered more of a northwesterly sort of flow instead of this direct northerly flow, as we'll see in a minute. Pretty normal for this time of year for models to be backing off and on from different situations. So it'll be a scenario where we're just going to have to keep an eye really what happens. But we'll run through the models. We'll see what has changed within them today. And we'll have a look at the ensembles, which still has a lot of scatter around. So it does show you, even though the operational runs have backed off a little bit, there still is really no definitive solution at this stage. So if we look at the latest GFS, you can see low pressure in the north, higher pressure in the south, with a bit of a split across the country. Colder and more unsettled in the north, drier and a tad warmer in the south. We're continuing with westerly winds all the way to this weekend, and when we do see Scandinavian high build. Now, it's not massively cold Scandinavian high. There is some cooler air over the continent, lower dew points, so it's going to feel a little bit chilly, but nothing massively cold. The colder air is going down into southeastern Europe. Beyond that is where the uncertainty does come in. Now, we see these high pressure areas flatten over the UK, and what we've seen in the last few model runs is it's trying to ridge northwards. You can see there is some heights rising towards Greenland, but the low towards Scandinavia is just towards Canada is just a bit too strong. Now, this is beyond day 10, so it is in the uncertain time frame. As I said over the last few videos, even when we've had cold solutions, we have to take it all with a pinch of salt. Beyond that, the high pressure just sort of sits to our south, never ridges northwards. We do see that lobe of tropospheric polar vortex still head towards Scandinavia, turning it very cold there, and very cold air is just to our north. But we don't have the ridge out in the middle of the Atlantic like we did on yesterday's run. And you can see a scenario here where there's very cold air just to our north, but we're in the milder air just to its south. So still a lot of uncertainty in play. GFS has backtracked quite a bit on what it was showing for the last sort of 3 or 4 days. So it could just be an anomaly sort of run. If we do have a look at the 6Z run, you can see it went very, very cold. So, yeah, that's the 6Z run, brutally cold. We're plunging into the freezer, widespread snow. But you can see for this 12Z run, it has completely flipped to a much milder scenario. And this one is a lot more blocked as well, with a lot of high pressure towards Greenland. Definitely something is happening in terms of there is definitely signs within the atmosphere that there is going to be some blocking around at some point over the next few weeks. There will be high pressure trying to ridge further northwards, and that's what the models are picking up on, and that's what they're developing, and that's why we've been seeing these really quite extreme outputs, because that potential is there. However, as you can see by this latest run, it is not guaranteed by any means, and it can flip. And we'll have to keep an eye really what happens again over the models over the next few days, whether it now is sustained westerly winds or northwesterly winds, or whether this is an anomaly run and we go back to northerly winds. If we have a look at the GEM, which has shown over the last few days some quite cold runs, but at the same time some quite milder runs. Very similar over the next few days to the GFS, high pressure ridging up towards Scandinavia, and then we see high pressure trying to push northwards towards Greenland, but at day 10 it does get flattened away by a low tropospheric polar vortex, which is going to be getting in quite stormy conditions. Now, this hasn't got any real signs of going particularly cold at this stage, but the majority of the colder runs we've seen from the GEM, the ECWF, and the GFS has been 240 hours and beyond. So it's not too unexpected to be at 240 hours and not seeing anything too cold in the GEM. But it is showing much more westerly sorts of outlook. And if we do go back to the midnight run and see how that does compare, you can see vastly different. Again, with higher pressure trying to ridge in the Atlantic, but these small lows pushing off. So you can see it is flip-flopping quite a lot between runs. No definitive signal and a lot of uncertainty at play. If we have a look at the Eastern RAF, so let's compare over the next 10 days. You can see at the moment low pressure pushing in, then high pressure builds in for this weekend, brief easterly winds, and then we see that high pressure trying to reach towards Greenland. Much more of a Greenland high potentially developing here, and you can see right towards the end of the run, we are starting to try and pull in northerly winds. You can see the big temperature contrast there with quite mild air to the south, quite cold air to the north, and we'd have to see how this goes on a couple of days afterwards. If we did see this high ridge up towards Greenland where there is a gap opening up and some heights are rising, we would start to pull in a northerly wind, but at the same time we could see this low get reinvigorated by this colder air plunging into the North Atlantic and bring us something a bit stormy. But then while that clears, that's when we could see high pressure build again. So these models are not saying that there's no chance of anything northerly coming up, but potentially being a little more delayed, because of course sometimes these sort of northerly winds can take a few goes at it, with the high pressure trying to reach further northwards. So it's all to play for. You can see the main three models are all disagreeing with each other now. They have been flip-flopping around over the last few days. So yeah, we'll just have to really see what evolves. Now, if we have a look at the UK Met Office, out to 168 hours. Now, I won't show anything too cold, of course, because it only goes out to 168 hours. I'm not expecting anything too cold in the next week or so. But you can see Scandinavian high builds in. And then we see a big low but tropospheric polar vortex. We can see it is on northwest-southeast line. It's not straight in from the west. So if we could see northern Canada and other parts of Greenland, I would suspect we would be seeing some ridging, but how that does evolve beyond that is the uncertainty at this stage, and we'd want to see this low tropospheric polar vortex is really cold, low pressure shift further eastwards towards Scandinavia, and in that scenario, that's when we could be going a little bit colder. Now, if we have a look at the GFS ensembles, you can see the mass uncertainty in play. You can see over the next week or so, temperatures are going to be generally above average, but only by a degree or two, especially from around the 13th, 14th onwards. And with easterly winds, chilly easterly winds, at the surface, it's not going to be feeling too great. Now, of course, the upper air is quite warm, but at this time of year, with we can see inversions within the high pressure, basically where air is actually colder towards the surface than it is higher up in the atmosphere, and that's why in this scenario, even though temperatures a degree or two above average, it could feel around average or below that and feel quite chilly at times. Beyond that, into the longer term, there is a whole lot of scatter. You can see the operational run being one of the milder runs in the 12Z, going really quite mild, but then at the same time, some going very, very cold, getting down to -10. If we did go back to the 6Z run, see how that does compare, you can see again a lot of scatter around, and some very, very cold runs once again. So nothing really is evolving within the GFS ensembles. They are remaining very uncertain. One thing that is remaining quite definitive is pretty low precipitation over the next few weeks. No signs of massive low pressures moving in. The GFS and the GEM did show westerly winds pushing in quite definitively, so it'll be interesting whether that actually does have support within the ensembles, because as you can see, this not many of them have got a lot of precipitation around, which would more mean high pressure is involved, or at least colder, a drier air will be involved. Now, if we have a look at Glasgow, see how that does compare. You can see quite chilly at the moment. Temperature's going to be rising, and we've got these flip-flop temperatures simply because it's further northwards with more low pressure involved. Beyond that, temperatures remain above average and remain around average all the way for the last sort of 5 days of this run. But once again, we have some very, very cold runs coming out, but at the same time, some milder runs. Precipitation is not massive, especially for the north. We have seen it a lot higher than this throughout this autumn, but there is still a decent signal around, so low pressure does look likely to be close by. No massive areas of high pressure are going to be controlling it, other than maybe a few days over the course of this weekend to the early next week, maybe 2 or 3 days where we could see some quite dry conditions, if we do have that brief Scandinavian high. Now, if we finish up, have a look at the UK Met Office run. We'll have a look at precipitation and temperature. You can see at the moment a few showers in and around, but nothing massive. And weather front will be spreading south and eastward across England and Wales, but sort of disintegrating as it does. Tomorrow afternoon, we could see some patchy rain in the central areas, where we do still have a bit of the remnants of that weather front, and then we see once again some more showers in the north. But things are slowly going to be drying up this weekend, but we will see one last batch of rain in from the west throughout Friday with one low pressure system before things start to turn a bit drier as we do build high pressure in. But of course, with an easterly breeze, we're going to be potentially seeing some showers in the east, and of course, the air isn't that cold, so they will mainly be sort of low cloud, drizzly rain with that. If we have a look at the max temperatures, you can see generally temperatures today were around 13-14 degrees in the south. Throughout Wednesday into the afternoon, you see temperatures maybe 14 or 15 in the far southeast, but around 10-11 in the Midlands. Tomorrow afternoon, we see temperatures once again 13-14 degrees potentially, and by Friday afternoon, again maybe 13-14 degrees. And with that easterly chilly wind on Saturday, we're going to be seeing 12, maybe 11 degrees along the east coast, and maybe only 9 or 10 degrees along the east coast for Sunday afternoon. So you can see, even though the upper air temperatures are quite warm, we could be seeing an inversion with temperatures actually a lot lower at the surface. So still think things are still looking quite interesting over the next few weeks. We're just going to keep our eyes peeled on models. We are getting into the time frame now where we can get these exceptionally cold runs starting to appear in the models, and they are sort of viable options. There is the possibility of them coming off. There is still a decent chance over the next few weeks we do see something colder at times, but whether it's as bitterly cold as we've been seeing on the current models over the last few days, or whether it's just a sort of a brief spell, or whether we do see any wintry with it at all, yeah, we're just got to keep an eye really what happens. That is the uncertainty that we do have when we head into the winter months. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.